There really is something to be said for the raucous EDM intro music, and when it's not there, I miss it. How are you, John?
You see, we're gonna need to get some sort of lead and stuff. I like that stuff. All my videos, that crap.
I know.
I'm doing great. I think it was going to be an exciting show. I think people are probably wondering from the thumbnail. What we okay? We streaming?
We are streaming, but I have the wrong thumbnail there.
Okay, wrong thumbnail. Yeah, we got the Akure Paradox is what we're looking
Yes, we have it. The audience can see it. Tell us what that is. I have no idea what the Akure Paradox is.
Well, that's the thing. It's sort of a new concept, and I wanted to introduce it to the audience. And it's a variation of something that we've talked about in the past that the audience will be familiar with. So, but it's somewhat connected potentially to what we were talking about last week with the limited hangouts, because there are, I think, probably two different types of limited hangouts. We talked about this last week. One is sort of a professional operation where they are clearly operationally avoiding certain stuff and steering people in a certain way. And then there's people who are just a limited hangout despite their best intentions or accidentally. I've explained to the audience, I was accidentally. Right, so we were talking unintentionally, right? Unintentionally. So talking about 1918 H1N1. Now the thing was, we were so close that we were too close for comfort, but I was still wrong. Wrong is wrong, right? It's not the right thing. So that kind of served a little bit as a limited hangout for a while, but then when we shifted and we took out that straw man hypothesis and put in this new hypothesis, all kinds of social dynamic things started to change. Like Bob Malone started responding to my tweets.
Right.
And yeah. So all kinds of things started happening. So we're going to take a look. Yeah, all kinds of people, all kinds of stuff. So when we go to the patron-only portion of the show, we've got some video clips that we're going to play that kind of came up in the last week. So this is new stuff. One of these things is that last week on Dark Horse podcast, Brett Weinstein and Heather Haying started talking about this bird flu situation that we're currently dealing with, that a lot of people were talking about on Twitter with H5N1. And Heather brought up how this kind of semi-connected or what have you, tangential to the stuff that we've been talking about. And Brett has a response to that. And so when we get to the patron-only hour, we're going to play that little portion from Dark Horse Podcast. It's just last week, so it's last week's episode. I've got it kind of queued up and everything, so it's just 2 minutes. And we'll take a look at that, and you guys will get to hear what did Brett say when Heather brought this up and how did he handle it. And we'll take a look at that, and we'll break that down a little bit. We also have some video from CNN, and this is huge. This is huge. This is CNN talking about what was happening in China before COVID, right? In the December 2019, December 2019 timeframe, when, if you guys remember, well, the patrons will remember. The people on YouTube don't get to see this stuff, but the patrons will remember that last week we played a clip of Bob Malone on the Joe Rogan show, telling Joe Rogan that he got a call from Michael Callahan from the CIA. And then Michael Callahan, the CIA agent, said, hey, you better get your butt over here to China. The problem was that there was nobody actually dead yet from COVID. And so it's like, so how big a problem was this, guys? Like, what was going on? Well, we're going to listen to CNN tonight with the patrons. And CNN is going to tell us what was going on before COVID that might have brought Michael Callahan to China. So we'll take a look at that. So we got a bunch of different video clips queued up. But before we go to that, before we go to the videos, that's just with the patrons. We can't really do that now in this YouTube portion of the show. But I wanted to share a couple slides with the audience. You did a show this week with
Dr. Jason Dean.
Dr. Jason Dean again. You
Great guy.
really good guy. And one of the things I like I like about him is he's really open to new information,
Yeah.
new evidence, new twists in a story, and he's like, "Whoa, this kind of answers a lot of questions, right?" And
He's authentic. He exudes authenticity.
yes, and that's kind of what we look for in science are people who are open to new observations, new interpretations, new considerations, and take them into consideration, right? And say, this is worth looking at further. And that's why he's really, I think, doing a really good job. So you were on his show, I guess it was just yesterday, right? Was that yesterday, this morning? Today?
No,
yesterday?
it was yesterday, I think.
Okay.
Hard to
All right.
remember because I've been going to court and everything.
Yeah. So Court was today, Brave TV was yesterday. So if you guys want to check out Jason on Brave TV at Rumble, Jason's on the Jason Dean Show, which is Brave TV at Rumble. And earlier in the week, I was on Brave TV talking about the Las Vegas shooting with Dr. Jason Dean. So you and I were both on his show this week. All right, so let's talk more about this Akure Paradox. Let's go to the next slide in the deck. And for those of you who are keeping score, you've got the deck there?
Yeah, that's it.
Deck. Okay, yeah, let's go to the next slide. Okay.
What's he doing with these glasses? What is that?
Well, that's kind of what I said. It's like, dude, I take the glasses off and you put them on. It's like,
What is that?
Whoa. What are we shifting characters here? Is he going to be wearing the black hat next week too? It's like,
It's like blue blockers or something. Whoa.
I guess, but again, I took the glasses off. He put the glasses on. It just seemed, I don't know. The timing's a little odd. All right, let's go to the next slide. For those of you keeping score at home, these guys just can't get enough of me, it seems, which is really quite, I guess that's
Flattering. NASA's looking.
Yeah, I'm not really worried too much about NASA. It's those other guys. So the one that says NSA, so that's the building in the lower right-hand corner. That's Fort Meade.
Did you see this thing that OpenAI has hired some NSA person to be the head of something pretty big? And then also Apple is integrating OpenAI. Apple had this big AI announcement. I gotta tell you, I know we don't get into tech and we're not talking about AI, but this is a new era for Apple. I think the Steve Jobs drawer is totally empty and Tim Cook is not an innovator.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't trust Tim Cook one bit. And I think, I told you, the Sacramento thing, I think that was a show. When, who was it, Pompeo or Barr was carrying on about Apple and we're really disappointed in Apple.
To break the encryption on the San Bernardino shooter's phone, right?
Yeah, it's like if the guys in Israel can figure it out.
Yeah.
Without the instruction book, I'm sure the guys at Apple can figure it out. It's like the Israeli guys figured it out without the instructions.
No, it's not that Apple can't figure it out. It's that they're saying we're not going to do that because then there's just no cybersecurity for anybody. Or at least that's what they say publicly. That you're right. I agree with the handle.
Right. Yeah. I don't agree. Well, I'm very excited about the new book. This will be coming out probably September, October timeframe. I'm hoping Simon and Schuster will pick this one up. But it's again a coming of age story, the chicken or the egg, and it looks at the philosophy behind pandemics, right? And where did they begin? And so we'll take a closer look at that. This next slide though gets to the Akure Paradox, and I'm not sure if the audience knows exactly what this is. Yeah, or if you know what this is.
No.
All right, so this is kind of at the heart of the Akure Paradox. And what you're looking at right now are the handwritten notes of Galileo Galilei.
Ooh, wow.
And these are his drawings in his book, The Moons of Jupiter. And he takes these observations on different nights at different times and logs them. As you see, these are his drawings. This is in 1610 this happens.
Man.
Okay.
Neat handwriting.
Okay. So he makes the lines, he's got the rulers, and he's putting where he sees the moons. Right? This is Europa, Callisto, I think Io and Ganymede, I think, are the four. He can see four of them. And if you look at the next page, this is Galileo's telescope.
Ooh.
And Yeah, it's a pretty fancy thing.
Where is this? In a museum?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a priceless artifact right there.
Indeed. But the reason that I think this is interesting and important and relevant to our work here is that Galileo puts down, here's Jupiter. There's a bunch of moons on Jupiter, and they're going around Jupiter. This was blasphemy in the day. Back then, everything revolved around the Earth.
Right.
Okay. And he said, yeah, but those don't. and the Pope is like, well, that ruins the whole God story. And Galileo's like, why? What the hell does this have to do with that? That has nothing to do with it. And he's like, what do you want me to tell you? Here's the thing. I got the scope. What do you say? What do you got?
Was Galileo religious?
It's a good thing. I don't know. I think he was conflicted. I think in the day, I think they all
had to be, right?
Right. Yeah. I think they all were. But I think his observations kind of eclipsed his beliefs, right? He's saying, but look, it's like, what do you think this is? You think this is something else? Like, what is this? So his observations eclipsed his beliefs.
To use another astronomical analogy.
Well, I wasn't really yet. I wasn't after the pun there. but the idea that your observations are going to suppress your beliefs and you're going to come to a better understanding, a new understanding. Okay. Jump ahead to the next slide, because this next slide.
This is like the Gianni Versace telescope.
I think because once it became famous, they're like, well, this telescope has to be on the most fancy telescope pedestal. So whatever. Yeah. All right. But this next slide, this is a key thing, because although Galileo is kind of famous for all this stuff, it was really a crowdsourced effort. It turns out that an optician named Hans Lippershey in the Netherlands is the guy who really invents the telescope. And then it's Johannes Kepler who figures out, well, if we put a convex lens here and a convex lens here, or
compound lens.
Right. And so Kepler comes up with the more advanced concept, and then a guy named Christian Huygens, or Huygens, another Dutch guy, I think, comes up with another aspect. And over time, Isaac Newton, Robert Hooke end up making huge contributions to the telescope. But even Galileo, when Galileo made his telescope, it was based on the work of Hans Lippershey. So this was a crowdsourced effort. He didn't do this all by himself. No way. And if he didn't have Kepler, I don't know that he would have been able to get to this kind of resolution. Kepler's refinement with the convex lenses and all that got to the kind of resolution where eventually Galileo gets to a 30x telescope. That's a big deal. Back
what was the one that you had when we went camping? How many X? Because that was pretty big.
Well, that's different. So the bigness of it, the diameter of it, is how much light, how much light it gathers. The eyepiece is what determines the zoom ratio. Yeah. So the idea is you have a couple different eyepieces to get different magnification. And in the world of telescopes, you don't really think of 10x, 4x. You talk in, it's a different terminology. So, but the point here is it's a crowdsourced effort. And although Galileo gets a lot of the credit for this, it really was a group effort even back then in the 1600s. Right? So a lot of guys contributed to this so that this observation could happen. All right. So I thought that was interesting. Now, when he finds all this stuff, the next slide kind of spells this out. Kepler's contributions, Lippershey's contributions. So when he discovers all this, it's anathema. No, everybody's like, he's insane. He's out of his mind. The old man has lost his marbles. He was like the Bob Malone of his day, right? Everybody's like, he's lost it. He's jumped the shark. He's out of his mind.
Sniffing the Pope.
Yeah, he's like, what? Well, that's a whole other story. So I don't think he went that far, actually. I don't think people really were thinking Galileo
The Pope was like, dude, back up.
I saw. The Pope was like, what the hell? You're not supposed to do that. So I think that back then, people had a really hard time accepting these observations of Galileo. Very, very hard time. Now, we jump ahead. What is the Akure Paradox?
Yeah.
Well, we talked about this cognitive bias codex before. We've used this before on the show. And it talks about the different types of biases or beliefs that we have, right? We go through life, and as we go through life, we develop different beliefs, right? And if you're always barked at and have your heels bitten at by Yorkshire Terriers, you develop a dislike for Yorkshire Terriers. Like they're always barking and nipping at you, those little bastards.
Friendly little dogs.
No, I don't like them. I don't like them one bit.
Oh.
But I like big fluffy dogs. I like Newfoundlands and, those big dogs. I like those. That's my belief system. Other people have different beliefs. Lots of people love Yorkies and hate big dogs.
They're very sweet.
It's America. It's awesome, right? It's great. Everybody gets to do whatever they want in America. The Cognitive Bias Codex, though, talks about the beliefs and the biases that we bring to the table, right? So we all have certain beliefs and certain biases. Well, the Akure Paradox is connected and sort of similar to, and you can hop ahead one slide where we zoom in on the codex, but it's similar to one of the biases that we've talked about in the past, and that is something called confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is like cheating in science. Confirmation bias is when you only look for data that confirms your observations. And in fact, it's on the next slide. I went to, what do I use? Perplexity AI. And I said, what is confirmation bias and how is it dangerous in science? And so it came right back. I love this because for stuff like this, it's helpful when you know the answer and you just want something to kind of give you a summary of something that you know the answer to it, but you want a summary. So I said, well, what is confirmation bias and how is it dangerous in science? Because I understand that, but I wanted the summary. Confirmation bias is the tendency for people, including scientists, doctors, PhDs, professors, to seek out and interpret information in a way that confirms their existing beliefs or hypotheses. Uh-oh.
It's definitely something that a lot of people tend towards, right? Because they want to be right.
Yeah. More so than you would think.
Yeah.
And one of the few people that doesn't do this is Dr. Jason Dean.
Right. He
doesn't do this. He comes to the table and he's like, what do you got? And he's like, wow, this is wild. This changes everything. Same thing with Dr. Dave Cullen. He has this open mind, this willingness to look at new information. Doesn't necessarily agree with all of it. He's not supporting the hypothesis per se, but he's got the open mind and he looks at the material and goes, well, that is pretty weird. Gotta say, that's pretty strange. So that's kind of what you're looking for. I am astounded at how many people, if they're not spooks, are guilty of confirmation bias. Meaning, as soon as you introduce something that's counter to their version of what went on here, their hypothesis, they don't even want to look at it.
Well, or they'll go find some article that says what they're saying without looking any further than the news article and just blast you with, CNN articles and stuff like that. See, I'm right.
Well, yeah, but to me, it's more about, I don't really get that as much as I get people. For example, I'll share some of the observations about what was happening in 2019, what was happening in 2013 in China, the UNFAO stuff with some physicians, and they'll block me.
Yeah,
it's like, I sent you the UNFAO letter telling you that something was happening in 2013.
And they block you for that.
And they block you.
That's a social engineer. And you know what? Speaking of social engineering, I forgot to mention this to you, John. Do you know what today is?
Somebody's birthday?
Well, it's Trump's birthday, but it's also the 7-year anniversary of the launch of the social engineering campaign against me with the dirty bomb hoax in the port of Charleston.
Oh, right.
It's also 2 days after the 4-year anniversary of the creation of the Crony Awards. And not to derail your subject, but we are right now, I've just named this like today. This is social engineering season, because you see, I allege that the purpose of that whole Emmys lawsuit was to deactivate the 120,000 strong and growing Jason Goodman YouTube channel, which got thousands of views and lots of attention on all of this material that you share and everybody. It's also Flag Day, people are saying. But the point is, I've noticed that there's been an uptick starting right about now to reduce the visibility of your Twitter account. We saw this person, Julie, trying to mass report my Twitter account to get it banned and thrown off. What they want to do is they're starting to spool up their emergency kind of like all hands on deck mode, where they want to shut down the most influential and most correct. It's not about the most influential. It's about the most correct that have any degree of influence. Because you notice they're not shutting down Tim Pool. They're not shutting down Tucker Carlson. There are limited hangouts that they are allowing to flourish.
Indeed. And so that's why I kind of see this as I see it as the intersection of the limited hangout / professional social engineer, right? And confirmation bias / fragile ego, right? So, but I'm astounded because they can't all be GEC, CIA, FBI, UCOs. They can't all be.
If there's 60,000?
I know, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. But they can't all be. And from time to time, we run into a new doctor, a new physician, a new person here or there on Twitter. And again, this confirmation bias aspect, right? It's like the kissing cousin of the ignoring the evidence in the limited hangout. So ignoring the evidence in the limited hangout, that's the professionals. That's, you know, if you ask me my opinion based on information and belief, that's the Dr. David Martins, the Peter McCulloughs, those are the professionals. But I'm allowing room for, if you go back up one slide, I'm allowing room for well-meaning physicians, well-meaning professors. And because of confirmation bias and ego,
right, they like it.
They don't want to look at stuff that kind of ruins their 4-year narrative that they've convinced themselves, their wives, their friends, you know. Right. You know, jump ahead 2 slides. There's a slide from Nick Hudson at Panda. I want the audience to see this. So Nick is the head of Panda. Panda is the Pandemic Data Analysis Group. He was part of the team that I was.
You like him or you don't like him?
Well, let me explain. So he was part of the team that when I met with Steve Kirsch said, show this stuff to J.J. Couey. J.J. Couey assembles a team of Nick Hudson, Matt Crawford, J.J. Couey, and some other guy, and I forget his name. So Nick then invited me to present to 30, 40 people at Panda about 2 years ago. Right, on a Zoom call about 2 years ago. And they were like, well, yeah, we know that this disappeared. And I was like, you didn't know it disappeared from 100 countries. You guys are full of shit. You didn't know that. So, you know, but Nick's recent post that came out right after our show was June 7th. And Nick is saying this is spot on. Gain of function is a limited hangout. And our show was all about limited.
So he's saying that's not real?
He's saying the whole pandemic's not real. And now he's saying gain of function is a limited hangout.
What does he think the real story is?
How is gain of function a limited hangout?
Isn't it something that they are doing and multiple doctors like Rand Paul?
It's almost like these guys are watching our shows on Friday nights.
and then counter-programming it.
And figuring out how to scramble even if it doesn't make any sense. Even if it doesn't make any sense. They're just using the words.
Run up against our hard stop. We've got to wrap it up and head on over to subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and the other ones. But just take us out, John, and then we'll carry on in the sponsor-exclusive segment just 5 minutes from now.
Well, I think this Akure Paradox is when there is new information, when there's new evidence that is so explosive, it is so different from what you've seen. Similar to the Vegas shooting with the Saudi helicopters and all that stuff. It's so different from the narrative that confirmation bias is almost overwhelming. You just don't want to look at this. This is uncomfortable. People see the thumbnail and it makes them uncomfortable.
Right.
Because this changes the whole story in a way that is so deceptive that grown adults are afraid to look at it. They'll go to the movies.
You mean the official narrative is deceptive? This is such a departure from the deception that people can't believe it.
So that if you accept that this is what this is, and that, oh my God, then that would mean that, and that would mean he's right about those.
Well, this is cognitive dissonance that these people are facing, that they're like, holy cow.
And that's the Akure Paradox. It's this combination of cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias. They don't want to be wrong. They don't want to be wrong, and they don't want to be wrong this way. This is nauseating to be wrong like this.
Yes.
To find out, right? And that is the Akure Paradox. We'll be back with our patrons in just a few minutes. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. See everybody in 5. Stay with us.